welcome back. This is lesson 4 of the Dynamic WordPress course for beginners. In our previous lesson, we talked about how you can page build inside of WordPress. We talked about concepts such as flexbox, grid, padding, margin, gaps, and all these other concepts that can help you to page build inside of WordPress. So in this lesson, we're going to be talking about some core aspects of WordPress that can help you structure your content in a way that makes complete sense. And so in this lesson, we're diving into content structures inside of WordPress. You're going to be exposed to some understanding that will help you to develop a technical mind that can also assist you in making decisions in the future about how to categorize or group or even structure your content inside of your WordPress website. So let's talk about all of these concepts. We're going to be covering concepts such as posts, post types, custom post types, pages, taxonomies, terms, tags, and other of these such concepts. If you watch till the end of this lesson, I'm going to show you one innovation of Crocoblock that can help solve a very major problem inside of WordPress. So let's begin to understand the content structures of WordPress by coming back to our dashboard and taking a look at what we discussed in lesson 1. In lesson 1, if you recall, we talked about the fact that initially, the very first time WordPress was innovated, the idea was to create a blogging platform. And no wonder that if you look inside of the WordPress website here, just install any basic WordPress website, you will notice that you have inside of here posts. And what are posts? They're just simply blog posts. And that's what the idea was. We have a blogging platform, people can create posts, they can add posts, stuff like that. And when you publish posts, then you own a blog, right? At some point in the future, it was decided that because of the capabilities of WordPress, we could expand the ability of WordPress to involve other things that were not essentially blog posts. So an idea came up. Why don't we allow people to also create things such as pages, such as when we created our homepage? And so the idea was, well, posts are not very different from pages, technically speaking, so maybe we can just also build something called a page, right? Now that brings us to the very first of the content structure or content types that we intend to discuss inside of this lesson, called a post type. To understand this, let's go to the WordPress database. Now, this is basically delving into advanced territory, but don't be too bothered by the concept we're about to discuss here, because whatever we discuss here will still be foundational to what you will understand in future complicated scenarios, okay? So just understand the very, very basics. I just want to show you how things work. We can build our knowledge from there upward. Now, let's move over to inside of the database. We can come to the database by coming back to local WP. If you have your WordPress website installed locally, like I do, this is where you come to. You come to Overview, you come to Database, you click on where you have Connect, you have Admina Evo. This is an application that can help you to modify or edit or even view the content of your WordPress database. Now, if you're wondering what is even the database, it's just where all of whatever posts you put inside of your WordPress website, whatever is the content you add to your WordPress website, is actually really stored in a database. So this is what we're going to use to just view the database, see how things are looking, okay? Now, if you're using any other WordPress management platform, such as a web hosting company, they should have an application online on their web hosting servers that can help you to manage your WordPress database. But let's take note of what we have inside of here. Let's say we want to take a look at our database right here. On the left, you have all of these tables, just as you have inside of Excel or any other spreadsheet program, right? Now you have these tables, and inside of here, you can click on WP Posts. Once you come inside of WP Post, you can click on Select Data at the top right here. Now take note of what you see at the very top, the very first row of this particular table. Do you take note of what you see inside of here? You see you have the post ID, which is 1. You have the post author, which is 1. You have the post date, which is the date the post was created. And then you have inside of here post content. What you see inside of here is welcome to WordPress. This is your first post, edit or delete it, and so on. Now, Take note of what happens when we come back to our dashboard right here. If you just take a look at what we have inside of here, if you look at inside of post and you edit hello world, which you have as our very first post that comes along with WordPress, you have the same thing. Welcome to WordPress. This is your first post, edit or delete it, just as you have inside of here. So you can tell very easily without even being told that this is where the posts on your website are being stored, right? Now, let's take a look at scrolling. If you just look at the bottom here, you have this bar at the bottom that can help you scroll left to right and just see other columns inside of the same table. Let's scroll all the way to the right and we're going to take note of one column here. Now, if you just keep scrolling all the way to the end on the right here, you have this particular table column called post type. And what do you notice inside of that first row inside of there? You notice the post type there is what? Post. Now, come back to the WordPress dashboard. What do you see here when we come back to the dashboard? Let's just come back here. We see you have posts inside of here. Inside of that post, you have this particular post. Okay. Stay with me, okay? What that means is that your posts on your WordPress websites are just posts that are part of a post type called posts. We come back here, we look at it, it's post. Now, if you come back here inside of post, let's just view another post. You may wonder why we're going right now to the pages. And why are we saying that we want to view another post, but we're actually going to pages? Because inside of WordPress, posts and pages are essentially the exact same thing. The only difference between posts and pages inside of WordPress is what you see here as post type. Now, if you see on the first line here, you have post. It's, of course, that's the post type of post. Look at the very next line. You see you have another one, and that one is a post type of page. We can just scroll back to the beginning right here and look on the second line here, the second row. You see right here that you have the ID of 2. If we come back to the page and just take a look at it, we can wonder which of these posts have the ID of 2. Let's take a look. Come back again inside of the table. Let's just scroll to the right here. You see you have on the post content, you have this is an example page. It's different from a blog post and so on, right? Now, if we come back here and just try to edit sample page, let's just edit this one. Sample page came along with WordPress, right? It's just a page, a default page that is created when you spin up a WordPress install. Look inside of the URL inside of here. You see post equal to what? 2. So the post ID of this particular post type of page is actually 2. Now, what does this tell you? It means that whether you have posts or you have pages, they're all part of the exact same thing under WP posts. And giving them post types is only a way of separating responsibilities. We know that for the post, what we add there are things that have to do with our news articles, if we have that, or if we're just a writer owning a blog, we have things to manage our posts, right? Then if we need to create pages, such as what we have as our home page, we have our privacy policy page and other such pages, that will also be created as a post type of what? Of pages. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that a post type is a content format inside of WordPress that then determines how content is structured. And on your dashboard, you can very easily tell one post type from the other. This is very, very nice. Now, you may wonder, how about if you need to create a post type of your own, such as to manage maybe projects created by this fictional person called Fiction, whom we're building a website for. He has projects in the front end. We know there are projects right here, and you need to use this project on multiple pages. So you need a way to be able to create those projects in the back end and let us manage that somewhere in the back end and then fetch that to the front end. How do you go about doing that? You may need to create a post type of your own. And that brings us to the very next concept that we're going to discuss right now. It's called custom post types. And just as the name implies, it's a post type. Just as we have posts, just as we have pages, it's also a post type, but it is custom, meaning it doesn't come as part of the default WordPress installation. You can create one for yourself. What the name of that custom post type is and other such definitions will be entirely your choice. Can we create a custom post type inside of WordPress? Absolutely yes. And how do we do that? We make use of different plugins that are available to help us create custom post types. An example of such plugin that is available to help us create a custom post type is Advanced Custom Fields. And if we come inside of plugins here, we can install Advanced Custom Fields for sure. Now, if we install Advanced Custom Fields inside of that plugin, we can very easily spin up or create a new custom post type. But we already made the smart choice to get all of the entire bundle of the Crocoblock suite of tools, and Crocoblock provides us with another plugin that can help us do just that. This plugin is literally the most popular plugin in the suite for creating something like this. If you come inside of Crocoblock right here, just come inside of here and click on Dashboard. And we want to install a new Crocoblock plugin. We're going to come here to where you see you can install 17 more plugins. We want to click on Install. And okay, now down here, we're going to see JetEngine, and we want to install this plugin. It's engine because, well, it's the engine of most of the other things right here. I would guess that's what the name means. What do you think? Is that what the name means? I don't know. But let's just install JetEngine. Now, JetEngine is going to help us to spin up or make our own custom post types and do other such amazing things. Once it's installed, you see here you can activate it. I'm going to click on activate, and it's doing what we would do when we regularly would go to the plugins and we upload what the plugin is that we downloaded. It's doing the exact same thing. Now, once that is installed, you have a new menu item here called JetEngine, and you see it brings in all this other stuff. But the good news is that it also brings along with it post types. And if you click inside of post types here, you can see all the custom post types you have, which is 0, no post types found. However, these are the post types that you created right here. But if you want to take a look at all of the post types that came with WordPress or that was created by some other plugin inside of WordPress, you just need to come to the top right here and toggle this on and select built-in. And once you select built-in, you can see posts, you can see pages, you can see templates, and all these other post types. Now, out of the list of all of the custom post types that you have here, you can begin to edit how these post types function. But we're not going to delve too much into that right now, because what I want to focus on is how to create your own post type. So let's toggle that back off so that we come back to the JetEngine created post types. And here we can click on Add New to create a new custom post type. So let's click on Add New, and we want to give our post type a name. Now, what name would we like to call this? We could want to call this projects. So we could just type in here projects as the name. Inside of the post type slug, you see it just adds in the name projects, and that's fine. What is the slug? The slug is just how the URL, which is the link, will be formulated in the front end. So if you have a project called what you have right here, Monter, in the front end, what you will have as the slug is your website name / that particular project, right? What is the project's name right here, the slug. So it's going to be this / project / the name of the project, for example, Monter. So that's what basically the slug does in this particular case, okay? Now, if you come down right here, just don't focus too much on the advanced concepts here. Let's focus on the simple ones for now. If you come down here to where you have, let's just skip all these 3 for now. We don't need to bother with that right now. If we want to, we can just click on Add Post Type on the right-hand side right here. And once we click on Add Post Type, what do we see? We have a new post type here called projects. That is very, very good, right? Because we know that right now we can begin to add projects to our website. Now, if we just open projects, let's kind of open that in a new tab. We see we have all of the projects. If you see right here, you have this button that says Add Post. If you see also inside of the menu item for projects, you have Add Post. Why is it called Post? You remember what we talked about? That custom post types are simply posts. They're all inside of the WP post table right here and are only separated by the column known as post type, right? Now, because we know this, it's not surprising to us that the default name for adding a new custom post type item would be add post. But we can also modify that. If we come back inside of here, we can come down to where we have labels. We can come to singular name here. We can say the singular name is project. And if you come to add new, you see add new project. If we click on this, you have add new project for add new item. Now in new item, new project, edit project, view project, all projects, search for projects, and so on. If we just click through all of this, is going to create what the names are for each of these situations, right? Based on the name that we give to this post type. Once we're done and we click on update post type, what do we see? If we come back inside of projects right here and we refresh this, what do we have? Now you have add new project instead of add new post, and that just kind of makes technical sense. So far, we've talked about post types in WordPress. We've talked about how posts and pages are essentially the same, and the differentiating factor is the post type. We've talked about custom post types because now we can create post types for ourselves. If we want to, we can make modifications to such post types. Now, you notice something else when you try to hover over posts inside of here in the WordPress dashboard. You hover over it, and here you have inside of here, apart from the fact that you can list all the posts, you can also add posts. You have the ability here to add a category. Now let's click on that category and introduce ourselves to yet another concept. Look at these categories here, and you take note that you have a new category here, which is created by default inside of WordPress called uncategorized. And if we want to, we can create a new category item. So let's say we have a post on our website that is actually a sports post. Let's say it's a post that has to do with sports, and we want to categorize that as sports. So we're just going to type in here sports, and then we're going to click on add category. Take note, you also have slug, which is again how the URL structure is going to be. You also have the ability here to select a parent category, which simply is your ability to just select, some kind of hierarchical relationship where there is a parents category and there is also a child category. Now you could also add description for that particular category and click on add category. Now, once you add that, you have a new category term here called sports. Now, remember what I just called it is category term, because each of these are terms inside of that category. But category itself is actually a taxonomy. Now, this is the part that in very many WordPress videos that you watch will get you very confused. And why? Because sometimes it's very confusing to understand. But let me try to make this simple for you. Taxonomies in WordPress do one thing and one thing alone. They categorize or group posts together. So it makes sense that when you look at this particular taxonomy called category, now you have a taxonomy type called category, just like you have a post type called post, you have a taxonomy type called category, right? Now, a category, which is a taxonomy type here, is just an example of a categorization for your posts. If you see inside of count here, when you create a new category term called uncategorized, here you have one count, which shows the number of posts that are part of that grouping or category or term, right? Now, if you click on that count, what do you see? When we click on that number 1 there, it just simply redirects us to where you have all of the posts listed, and it filters it by that particular taxonomy term. Stay with me, okay? Now you see here that on the list you have Hello World, and you see that Hello World under categories has uncategorized as its category. If you edit Hello World, you will see that that is selected as its category. We can quickly click on quick edit right here, and you see under categories you have sports, you have uncategorized. Uncategorized is what is selected here. Now let's cancel that. We know that post is under the category term called uncategorized. Now, if we just come back to the list of categories right here, you see you have the ability to add more terms if you so desire. Now, if you take note under post, you have another taxonomy type here called tags. If you click on tags, you can add new terms to the tags taxonomy. So let's try to do that. So let's say we want to add a new tag and we want to call this UEFA. If you don't know what UEFA is, it doesn't really matter, but it has something to do with sports anyways, right? Now, if we click on add tag and we just add that inside of here, we now have a new term called UEFA. If we want to, we can add this as part of the tags that are related to that post. So inside of one categorization of the news type, we could have sports under categories. And then inside of tags, we could have UEFA as an example. All I need you to understand is the concepts behind this. Not really the implementation right now, but the concept. We're going to talk more about the implementation sometime in future lessons. But so far, you can understand that categories and tags are simply taxonomy categorizations. You would know that they are the exact same thing when you look at their URLs. Let's take a look at the URLs. If you click on categories right here, take a look at the URL when you select the categories item here in the menu item. Look inside of the URL. You see, after the website name, you have WP admin, which is our dashboard. You then have edit tags. But we're inside of categories. Why edit tags? And this is why I say this concept usually gets confusing for most people. The difference is what you have inside of taxonomy here. Taxonomy equal to what? Category. Now come inside of tags. What do you have? You still have the same edit tags, but the difference now is taxonomy equal to what? Post tag. So just like posts and pages are essentially the same and are only separated by post type called posts or pages, taxonomies such as categories and tags are essentially the same. The only difference is their taxonomy types, which is called post tag in the case of tags and category in the case of categories. Let me know in the comment section below if you understand these concepts, because they will be essential to your understanding of how to structure your content when you begin to build complicated WordPress web applications. Okay? Let me know. Now, let's talk about yet another concept. Another concept that we want to discuss is called archive pages. Now, archive pages are not actually pages as you know them to be. Inside of the WordPress dashboard, you have pages here. That's not what archive pages are. They're not pages. They're not regular pages. They're actually pages that are generated on the fly. With what criteria? Let me show you. If you take a look at this post inside of here, let's just go to categories as an example. Now, inside of categories right here, let's just select uncategorized as one of the terms inside of categories. Let's just click on view and view that in the front end right here. Now, if you view that, what will you expect to see? What you should expect to see is what you see right here. Inside of the category called uncategorized, which you see right here inside of the URL slug, you have the slug here, category, which is, of course, what you see inside of here at the very top, inside of the URL there. You also have another one here, which is the term uncategorized right here. Now, this URL here builds out this page, which is an archive page. Now, what is an archive page? An archive page is just a page that is generated on the fly that shows a group of posts that fall within the criteria of that page. For example, you could have a page such as uncategorized here, where the posts inside of it are all linked to the uncategorized term, Hello World, as the only post here. If you view Hello World in the front end, let's just click on Hello World, view it in the front end. The page that loads up is the Hello World posts linked to this uncategorized category. If we just open that up inside of here, you see that is the post right there. If you click on edit post at the top right there, and we just take a look at how that post is in the back end, you see on the right hand side right here, you have the ability to select your categories. And here you can select whether you want it inside of uncategorized or whether you want it inside of sports. So let's say we want to remove uncategorized and select sport and click on save. Now, we no longer have Hello World as part of uncategorized, we now have it as part of sports. Let's see if that makes a change to our archive page. If we come back to our archive page right now and we just refresh our archive page, what do we have? An empty archive page. You have category uncategorized and no post inside of there. Because our archive page needs to have all of the posts that are attached to that particular term. Do you understand this concept? Now, can you create your own categorization or your own custom taxonomies? Absolutely. You can come back inside of JetEngine right here, and instead of selecting post types, what do you want to select? What you have here as taxonomies. Don't worry, we're going to talk about meta boxes and meta fields in our next lesson. That is a topic of its own, and we're going to discuss that in detail in our next lesson. But for now, let's talk about taxonomies. We can create our custom taxonomies by ourselves by just simply coming inside of here. Of course, as with custom post types, you can also view the built-in one by toggling that on here. And here you can see you have categories, you have tags, you have all of these other different taxonomies that are created. As you can see, you have another taxonomy here called categories, but you can see the taxonomy slug here is different. This is created as part of Elementor's offering. Elementor brings in its own taxonomy as part of the installation, but you need to keep in mind the fact that whether you're creating post types or you're creating taxonomies, you need to ensure that the taxonomy slug is unique to you. Whatever you create, you need to ensure the taxonomy slug is unique to you. That is very important, and that will also ensure that there are no conflicts inside of your website build. Now, if we toggle this back off and we come back here to add new, we can create a new taxonomy type. So let's say we want to create a new taxonomy type. We want to call this skill. Let's say that when we create projects, just as we have right here, which is a custom post type, we also want to be able to select the skill that was employed in carrying out that project. So let's say that Fiction builds a project and applied only his web design skills, but didn't apply his web development skill to it. So here we want to be able to categorize projects that he applied web design to and projects that he applied web development to. Very simply, we can think about it that since we're talking about categorizations here, it's very easy for us to create a new taxonomy, and inside of that, we create terms categorizing each skill. And let me show you that. So let's say we create a skill. We just add skill right there. We come down here. If we want to, we can add new meta fields. Let's not talk about that right now. We'll talk about that in our next lesson. But let's say we want to add a new taxonomy. You see here, it asks us to select a post type, the post type that we're going to link that taxonomy to. So in our own case here, we want to link that to the post type of project. So we're going to search for and select projects. Once we do that, we can click on Add Taxonomy. Now, once we add the taxonomy and the page refreshes, take note of what happens when you hover over projects. Now, inside of here, you have skill. This is excellent because now we can further categorize our projects. So let's select skill as an example inside of here, and we want to begin to add the different skills that we need for our categorizations. So let's say inside of skill right here, we want to type inside of here, web design as a skill, and we want to click on add tag. You see it's called tag, but we can change the name. Just as we did inside custom post types, we can also change the names of all of this. We also have inside of here web development as another skill. We can just add that if we so desire. Let's just use this as our sample use case right here. Now, as we create it, you see it's automatically also creating slugs for us. We see the count is 0 because it's currently not linked to any single project on our website. Or we can very easily add in a new project and then select that skill as part of the categorization for this particular project, okay? Now remember that when we were inside of categories here, you had something called parent category, which will enable you basically to select one of these two categories or any of the categories you have here as the parent. So maybe inside sports, we want to create a new category that will now be a child term under sports. We cannot do that inside of skill, which we just created. Why? Because we did not set that up in our settings. If we want to do that, we can very easily do so. We come back inside of JetEngine. Of course, anything you create, you can always edit. So let's select taxonomies inside of here. Once we select that, we want to come inside of skill. And when we select that, we can come down here to advanced settings. We want to scroll down. Don't worry about all of the complicated concepts that are kind of advanced right now. It's not something we want to focus on right now, but we will focus on them in the future. So for now, we want to come here to where we have hierarchical and just toggle that on. And if we toggle on a hierarchical and we update that taxonomy, we can come back to skill. We can refresh this. And what do we see here? We see that now we have the ability to select a parent skill. So once we add a new category now, we can very easily select a parent category as one of these categories, or we can even edit any current category and select a parent inside of them, right? So now this way we're able to really structure out, really dial down how we need our content to be structured inside of WordPress. And this is very important because that's going to help us to display our content very dynamically in the front end. Now there's one last thing I want to show you inside of here. If you click on add new project and you come down here to where you have, the new project that you want to add, you see that inside of project here, you have skill on the right hand side here. Inside of skill, you can toggle that open and you can select any skill that, is part of that particular project. So let's say we want to create a new project. Maybe we call that Monter. We just want to type in Monter inside of here. Let's say that's the name of the project. We click on publish. We have our project published, right? Is it? I think it's published now. Great. Now let's come back to our dashboard. And here's what we notice. If we come inside of skill and we just take a look at each of these terms inside of this skill taxonomy, right? We see that on the right here, you have count 1 for each, and each of them actually counted the skill that we added them to, right? If we try to view this in the front end, let's try to view this web design skill in the front end. What do we have here? We have Monter showing up as the skill in the front end. And what kind of page do we have showing us right now in the front end? This is an archive page. Now you understand all of the basic concepts that come with categorizing and adding content inside of WordPress, except meta fields and meta boxes and dynamic tags, which we're going to discuss in our next lesson. Now, I want to show you one innovation of Crocoblock that is absolutely marvelous. And to help you to understand the use case for why we needed that innovation is for us to come back inside of the tables, right? Come back inside of where we can view our database. And remember what we talked about inside of here. The fact that inside of WP post table, just this one table, is where you have all of the posts you ever create on your WordPress site. And remember that I also told you that posts involves more than just posts that you see on your dashboard. It involves also pages. You even have projects, which is the custom post type that we just created, all of it inside of this one table. Now that comes with a very, very huge problem. When you begin to have a very huge website with hundreds of thousands of posts on them, which is absolutely possible, your website begins to slow down. And this is a huge problem. One of the major reasons why it will slow down is that when one table carries hundreds of thousands of rows, just like you have right here, then it begins to slow down because sorting and picking out your data from inside of that huge database will become a problem. So Crocoblock came up with an innovation called custom content types, which will essentially not make use of WP posts, even though you're creating something that looks and feels like a custom post type, but they call it a custom content type. Okay, let's come back to the dashboard here and just let me show you that one last concept and we can round off this lesson and prepare our minds for the very next one. Let's come back inside of here, and inside of here we want to click on JetEngine at the very top right here, and we see some settings as it relates to your website, setting up JetEngine right here. Now, if you want to, you can come inside of where you have custom content types and toggle that on. If you toggle on custom content types, don't worry about all of these other modules that you find here. We will definitely talk about them when we're talking about intermediate to advanced concepts in the future. But for now, let's select custom content types and click on save. And once you save that, this page essentially reloads. And once it reloads, you have a new item inside of your WordPress dashboard here called custom content types. Now that is different from custom post types, right? Now if you click on custom content types and take a look, let's go back to our table and just take a look at it. Take a brief look at it, right? You see WP this, WP that, WP this, WP that, all of that inside of here. Now, we want to create a new custom content type. Let's click on add new here and say that we want to create a custom content type called sample. Right now, I don't have an idea of what we need a custom content type for, but we're gonna discuss this sometime in the future for sure. Now, once we select that, we just add a name there. We can click on add content type. Once we do that, we have a new item right here on the dashboard called sample. If you click on that, you can now add in new samples, just like you can add in new post. Now, there are cases where you would want to use a custom content type such as this. There are other cases where you don't want to use a custom content type, and you would basically be able to make that decision if you use the article that I'm going to link in the description below. Just look in the description below. You're going to see an article that discusses when you could use a custom post type versus when you should use a custom content type to structure your website out. Okay. Now let's come back here, and we know we just created a new custom content type. Let's come back to the database, look at what we have here, and let's just try to refresh this entire thing. And you notice right here that you have something here called WP-Jet CCT sample, which is literally what we just created, a custom content type called sample. Now, why is this important? Because this is an entirely new table, and whatever you add inside of this particular custom content type is going to be on a separate table from what we have inside of WP posts. This is very, very good because of the fact that now you can very easily categorize your items and even separate them into different tables, so that even if you have hundreds of thousands of these in the future, you know they're in different tables, and so getting them and fetching them in the front end will be a lot faster. Now, we've talked about a lot of concepts today. I hope you take your time to review this video over and over again, because in the future, we're going to be referring to this particular video over and over again. Now, what will we discuss in our next lesson? Sometimes in managing your WordPress website, custom post types or taxonomies will not be enough. You would need to be able to manage bits and pieces of the data entered into each post type or into each taxonomy, so that each one can be managed in a way that is very dynamic. Now, you will begin to hear the word dynamic over and over again as we discuss dynamic tags in the next lesson. And dynamic tags will introduce you to making use of things like meta fields, where you can fetch specific data from the database that will show in the front end. If that is a concept that is beginning to get complicated in your mind, don't worry. We're going to discuss this in detail in the next lesson. I hope you've gained value from this lesson, and I hope you're able to find the time to leave a comment below telling me what value you gained and if you're actually understanding the concepts we're discussing here. As always, my name is Tobi Salami, and until I see you in the next lesson, stay dynamic.